And we're live. Hello, everybody out there. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm on a little bit just to make sure everything's working okay. I'm still getting used to this microphone icon down here. It doesn't seem to be picking up brilliantly. But if anybody's out there in YouTube land, whenever you pop in and say hello, let us know if you're there. And there's 9 o'clock now. So welcome to Doc Sloan's Science Fiction Station. I'm Doc Sloan, of course. Welcome to the Doghouse, as we like to call it. And it's been about a year since we've been online with this. So the real reason why we thought we'd pop on tonight was just to have a wee quick chat about what we're doing for the rest of the year, including the June Book Club, and also just to kind of have a wee bit of a nosy at all the different science fiction, fantasy, horror, etc., all the genre fiction and TV and movies that have been on over the last year. That I haven't been able to chat about. So I've got a few books to have a wee chat about tonight, and also just to sort of let you know a wee bit about what I've been watching and checking out, basically what's been on my radar over the last year. There's Teleos to us. Evening, Doc. Hi, Babs. How are you keeping? Thanks for joining us. And I hope you're keeping well. Are you off tonight? Excuse me. We're Friday night. It's 9 o'clock here, and it's been a very murky and very rainy day today here. I've been up at the hospital. My hand's a bit funny today. I've had a couple of what we got steroid injections into the hand to see if it'll give me a wee bit of pain relief, etc., and sort out inflammation. So that was fun. Well, it wasn't actually too bad at all. So I was kind of a wee bit, wonder what this is going to be like. One of the reasons why I'm popping on tonight, just to let you know, Babs, is that the doctor told me I'd be hyper tonight because of the injection. So my wife says, go on, pop online and have a chat. So that's partly why. No, working, catching as catch can. No problem, Babs. Hope you get home soon. Anyway, hope the works whizzes by. There's Brad Rose saying it's 5 a.m. here. Sorry if I crash while listening. No problem, Brad. And there's Vela saying, stopping by when I'm working 2 days in a row. Very cool. Thanks, Vela. Something I'm always wondering about, and I really do want to sort of get a general pull from my audience, is if to try and figure out if there is a particular time and date in the week that would suit broadcasts best. I suppose if I'm in GMT, when GMT +1, Greenwich Mean Time. Excuse me. But I know we have people from sort of all, either side of the meridian and all around the world here. And it would be nice if I could try and work out a good sort of average time to do a broadcast, I suppose. But there we go. So yeah, 5. I hope you're all keeping well. I wonder what the weather's like where you're at. It's been absolutely miserable here today. Just horrendous. It's so grey. Let's get your sunglasses on if you know what I mean. And it's just very fine misty rain going up to quite heavy rain. But so if I might be a wee bit chatty tonight apparently, so due to these wee injections, but I don't think it'll matter too much. So yeah, I hope you're all keeping well. And just to let you know, at the minute I didn't have this book handy. This is the book I'm reading at the moment, just to sort of bring you up to date, I suppose. This is Death's End, which is the last book in Cixin Liu's, is it Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, I think is what the work is collectively known as. I don't know if any I know some of you have read this, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm catching up to these books. I've had the Three Body Problem. This is the first one by Cixin Liu. Three Body Problem, which is just sublime, absolutely wonderful. I've had it for a wee while, and I haven't got around to reading it just because I've had so much else on. And I just, especially seeing some of Quinn's videos on it again. Quinn's videos are quite good on this kind of stuff, and I've kind of had to sort of not watch a bunch of them. But again, once again, young Quinn's kind of pointed us, and I think is it Dominic over at Film and Page had a bit of a chat about these books. So it's YouTubers out there who've kind of put me onto them, because I don't get out that much, and it's nice to find brand new science fiction. So just very briefly, if anybody hasn't or isn't aware of these books, so the first one is The Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu, and it's translated by Ken Liu. And even as a book on its own, sublime. It's excellent. It's so good. The Dark Forest is the second one. The translator here is Martinson, sorry, and then the third one again, translated by Ken Liu, is Death's End. So this is my first introduction. Well, I've seen The Wandering Earth, but this would be my first introduction to Cixin Liu, and I can't tell you really how overjoyed I am to find such original science fiction, such good thinking, combined with good storytelling. And if anybody's not picked up these, I highly recommend them. As soon as I get through Death's End, I'll definitely sort of put my thoughts together on the three different books. Each one seems to have its own character, and expands upon the previous book. And there's some fascinating ideas in it. We have concepts such as wall facers and sophons, which I think comes from the word Sophia, and was it photon possibly, if I can remember correctly. Sophia is the Greek word for wisdom. Yeah, so I even heard a good concept the other day. What was it? From these books. Let me see if I can get this right. Nyctoxelophobia, which is fear of the dark forest. Excuse me. So I'm so impressed by the ideas. And the books actually read quite differently. They have a different kind of flow. And I said I'm about. Let me see. I'm up to about page 212 now on Death's End, which is quite a chunky thing. It's about 720 pages. So I'm absolutely so impressed, and it's hard to find really original, good, big ideas, science fiction, combined with pretty good writing. So that's kind of where I'm at the minute. I've been tearing through them as well, and I'm hoping to really get through Death's End in the next few days. Let's see. Stop about working into. I think you have an issue finding a community common time where you're such an intelligent, thoughtful live channel, and your chat is therefore the top percentile from so many countries. How could you find a common time? Oh, and it's just to be honest with you, I'd like as much of my audience in the room as possible. If that makes sense, I often get I won't be able to make it, and I would like to accommodate people, and you can't accommodate everyone, but as much as I go at these times, I'm sort of becoming a bit more flexible, I suppose. So I don't know. It's a hard thing to. I do kind of think, well, over in America, that's kind of 5 hours behind, and heading this way over. It's you can't please everyone, but it's just I don't know. I'm trying to find a kind of optimum time for broadcast. I think would be useful. Your chat is there for the top percent. There's so many countries. I wouldn't worry about it too much, I suppose. It's one of my favorite things has been to find a new story or author like that. Speaking of unique and excellent storytelling, I wonder if there's an actual word that means fear of excellent storytelling. I'm sure you could put it together out of the Greek. Yeah, probably quite easily, I'd imagine. You could use that as a warning in case anyone who suffers from that stop by. If I don't know if you guys have read this book, and I know I've got a few comments from Bojack Harkness was wanting to have a chat about it, and he's not able to make it in tonight. But in terms of big ideas, and really just a very wonderful science fiction package, if you know what I mean. It's not just the idea, and I've been doing a wee bit of reading, and I think the general comparison with Cixin Liu tends to be with Arthur C. Clarke. And I think that's very unfair on Cixin Liu, but I understand. I get the comparison, if that makes sense. And so absolutely. In terms of something that's arrived, and I know it's been around for a wee while. I'm catching up here. It's definitely it's going to take its place with the big. I'd say the big epic series, the good ones, if you know what I mean, within science fiction. It's going to be able to hold its own with the Hyperion cantos and goodness, the Dune saga, that kind of stuff. And I think it's going to be around for it. Some science fiction ages poorly, etc. I think it's going to be around for a long time. It's a supremely good set of books so far, and I'm really, really curious to see where this last one's going. Mm. Yeah. Speaking of live chat accommodation, I think you talked about this before, but Discord really helps with that. Not for the live chat on YouTube, but ongoing discussion, regardless of time zone. It helps. Yeah. Part of what I'm going to try and get the station up and running properly. As you know, it's been, I suppose, just really with looking after my dad and so on. It was start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. No, I'm looking to sort of get things going with it. Hopefully, build up the audience a wee bit. Start producing a wee bit more content. And get back to having a go at it the way I kind of wanted to. So I'm going to try and set up a few wee things, and I've got actually have an awful lot of videos up now, and I've got a wee bit of tidying and I suppose bookkeeping, this kind of thing, just to sort of have a look at them. I'm not too happy with the way the adverts are in them at the minute. I think I need to sort of go back and revise that. But otherwise, yeah, we're looking forward to. I had planned to be doing some episodes on. I was going to, I suppose, heading through my A to Z actually that I planned to do. So I had started writing these before we went off the air. And once we have the June book club completed, we're going to start throwing a few more videos up. And in particular, I wanted to put one up on Carl Sagan and Cosmos. And was preparing preparing an episode on Ian M. Banks and the culture. And I've got my old printer set up here in the corner now, which is good because I happen to have a lot of the old. There's a fanzine about Ian, a fanzine about the culture. The Banksonian, isn't it? I believe it's called. I have all of them here on the computer, and I'm hoping to get them printed out and have a wee sort of nosy through them and see what we can find in terms of interesting content in relation to the culture. The Banksonian fanzine, I suppose, would that be the right word? I think was supported by Ian M. Banks, so it's a source of some good information about the culture, and I'm hoping to see what we can put together and try and let people know a wee bit about that. There we go. So other books, I suppose. The other one how do we chat about briefly? I was saying that basically for one of the things that I did get up to over the last year was managed to tear through all the Elric novels, and had picked up the Citadel of Forgotten Myths, and kind of kept this back till I got through them all. So it was really nice to see it. It kind of turned. I think it turned up when I was about halfway through. Yeah, I'll give you the blurb on the inside of the book. Just Elric rides again in this exciting new addition to the Eternal Champion saga from multi-award winner Michael Moorcock, the estranged ruler of the Melnibonian Empire. Elric is struggling with his nature and the constant thirst of his soul-sucking sword, Stormbringer. He wants his dying nation to thrive, but is he up to the task? With his companion Moonglum, he hunts across his lands for the great citadel of forgotten myths, seeking the answer to the nature of the Forn, the dragon-like creatures of the young kingdoms. Perhaps they can save his empire. And this is set between the first and second books in the Elric saga. The Citadel of Forgotten Myths is perfect for both long-time fans and those new to the epic fantasy series. So I was delighted to find this. And to actually see Michael Moorcock appearing in the sort of in the general sort of consciousness again, if you like. And I've actually noticed a lot of people are having a good old natter about the Eternal Champion series, particularly Elric. That there's a lot of fondness for the character out there. And so yeah, it kind of these stories kind of, I'll not say really much about them, but if I highly recommend, if you're an Elric fan, Michael Moorcock fan, check it out. You'll love it. It kind of looks into the origins of the Melnibonians, if you like, and also the dragons. So yeah, it kind of takes you to the flip side of the Young Kingdom. So very enjoyable indeed. And the other one that I sort of picked up that I haven't read yet, folks, is this, which I'm very, very much looking forward to. I have had a little bit of a flick through it. And in terms of, I suppose, looking at, I suppose it's looking at policing and Judge Dredd, etc., particularly within the UK. I was having a wee look through the back of the book. I'm very, very curious to find that Northern Ireland's not mentioned very much at all. But I have reasons for wondering about that. But I'm looking forward to reading it. Excuse me. I Am the Law by Michael Mulcher. How Judge Dredd Predicted Our Future. So a bit of a 2000 AD fan, as of course you know, and it's one of these that I haven't got around to yet, but it's a reasonably recent edition. I'm definitely looking forward to it. 2000 AD seems to kind of be pushing a lot of its old stuff at the minute, a lot of nostalgia, etc. You know, there's Joseph Smith saying hello there. Oh, I missed something by Vela there. Vela says, I think there's the Lasny book series. Amber is my equivalent to your enjoyment of the Elric saga. Definitely going to reread Elric myself at some point. I remember how much I enjoyed them before. For me, let me see. I haven't read them all. I'll tell you what I have over here in terms of the full saga. I have read more than what I've got on the shelves here, but in terms of the collective ones, I've got the Oswald Bastable ones, the Nomad of the Time Stream. I've got the Dancers at the End of Time, and I have the Eternal Champion stories, Ericos. I've got a lovely little collection of the Hawkman books somewhere, and then mostly the Elric ones. But I have read the Coram novels, as I recall. Tell you what, hang on. A little bit of Jerry Cornelius, though not all of the Jerry A. Cornelius stories. It's hard to remember all the Eternal Champions. Excuse me, I picked these up in the early 90s, I think. That's when they were bringing it. So they were hardbacks, and I couldn't really afford them all. I bought a couple of them. But I think there's sort of the similar version you'll get in paperbacks today. But in terms of the Tales of the Eternal Champion, let's see. Von Beck, I can put a tick at. The Eternal Champion, yes. Hawkman, yes. Coram, yes. Sailing to Utopia's got a star. I don't think so. Nomad of the Time Streams, yes. Dancers, Eric of Malnabone, Nature of the Catastrophe. Prince with the Silver Hand, that's a Coram story. Legends from the End of Time, Stormbringer, Earl Aubeck, Count Brass is the ones that we have. That's in the collected tales of the Eternal Champion. These, I think, there are about 14 different volumes. Excuse me. I think that the one that's come out actually isn't entirely new. I may have appeared in a magazine a wee while back, but I certainly never read it. So in terms of the stories, the new Elric stories, I think they're very good. And I don't think Michael Moorcock's lost his touch at all. If you love good fantasy. And I think he's trying to. I think there's a few wee comments in it about modern Britain and things like that, you know. There we go. Vela says, in the 90s, I lived in Boston, Massachusetts, and had a used bookstore 1 block from my apartment that sold every book for, 25 cents? They had no rhyme or reason to the layout in the shop, just stacks and stacks of books. However, soft, old, new, just piles of books. I would go in once a week to find anything I could. I love that kind of thing. When I went to Liverpool to study science fiction, believe it or not, I found a wee second-hand bookshop somewhere near, would be Mount Pleasant, I think, and they had a big sale on of old sci-fi pulps and paperbacks, and they were all 10p each. I came out with 100 books for a tenner. But yeah, I used to do a lot of that when I was a kid in Belfast. There are these second-hand bookshops, and I kind of had a paper round from the age of 10, so not a lot of money, but if I bought a book, I could take it back the next time I was up there and swap them over, you know. But it's great. I still love second-hand bookshops. They are great fun, you know. I know the Dune. I don't know what you've all thought, if anybody's out there, about the new Dune trailer that's dropped. I've had a nosy at it a few times now, having a wee look at the details. And it's looking impressive. So definitely still wondering where certain things are in the film, but I'm very much looking forward to checking that out. Um, Vela says it was exactly like that. The 10p each concept. My room is full of books, floor to ceiling. Yeah. I still have lots of books like that. And oddly enough, Vela, it's funny that books that I used to have when I was a kid that I read, and this is when I'd be quite young. I still I keep an eye out for them. The ones that I had to sell, if you know what I mean. I always kind of wanted to find them again, and I don't even know what some of them are in my head, but I remember their covers. Don't you if it happened to Chani? She's been a bit. She looks very sort of kick ass in the movie. I don't know. There's a fair amount of stuff within the film. I think that's the trailer that's making me think. Oh, um, and somebody put up a wee gif saying, "Oh, there's Alia," and kind of walking in front of a worm or something. And I kind of had a nosy at it, and it doesn't look like her. And it doesn't walk like a young. I think the person in front of the worm walks a bit like Paul, In the trailer, she seems to darn near hate Paul. I don't know. It's hard to trust trailers these days, isn't it? It used to be that if you saw something in a trailer, it would probably be in the film, but you're not too sure. Who knows? It might all get cut. But yeah, it's and I kind of had a nosy to see who was playing Cheops with the Emperor, and I think it was either Margot Fenring or Princess Irulan. I'm not too sure, but I've been kind of scanning for Casimir Fenring, and I suppose Christopher Walken as the Emperor is not how I would imagine the Emperor, but I've never really seen the Emperor. Portrayed the way he should be. I think in Dune, they've always been presented as quite old men, haven't they, or elderly men, instead of having the appearance of a man in his early 30s. I think. But yeah, and I think at the end there, I think we saw the is it a quick look of the Emperor's ship above Arakeen. But yeah, I'll have to have a wee nosy at it in more detail, I think. But I wonder, are you all looking forward to it? Some of you may be a bit trepidatious about it. I'm wondering what it's going to be like. But I'm keeping an open mind as always, I think. For those who I was having a wee chat about this on the book club the other day. For those of you who are into mythology, and epics, and so on, the other thing that I am reading at the minute, and I've kind of stopped it. Where are we at? I'm about 100 pages in. Is I've picked up Sir Thomas Mallory's Le Morte d'Arthur, and this is the Winchester edition. And again, I did have I suppose I have my own personal reasons for wanting this, but I also thought it would actually help inform my understanding of Dune a bit better, because there's a lot of matter of Britain stuff, I think, within Dune, and particularly Frank Herbert's concept of what he calls the Camelot pattern. So this is what we call the Winchester manuscript. It's meant to be a much more accurate version of Mallory's King Arthur story, which is quite a late one, and actually is very referential to a lot of the works that came before it. So yeah, The Night Prisoner. So it's particularly good. I'm enjoying it. I don't know if any of you are into King Arthur stories particularly much. I mean, what have I got? I've got the Arthurian romances by Chrétien de Troyes here. I suppose, what else have we got? We've got Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, some stuff like that, the Mabinogion, and etc. etc. And yeah, in terms of the matter of Britain, really, you're going back to the early 500s. So this is about 1100 years into the matter. And it's actually the other thing that I was thinking about was I wanted to talk about this idea of that seems, particularly with the Lord of the Rings, is it the Rings of Power TV show, which I caught. I know it's been a wee while now, and it caused a lot of consternation, didn't it? But the idea of respecting lore in relation to myth, I think, would be well worth discussing. And King Arthur's a particularly good example of, how other people get hold of something, rewrite it, change it, adapt it, manipulate it, etc., etc. Do you get to the point where the original story is probably very well lost, if you know what I mean? And I was just thinking that in terms of what is a myth, how do things become mythical, if you like? And what I was actually thinking in terms of the complaint about not respecting Tolkien's lore and so on, and taking his work and doing something else with it that uh, makes people unhappy. And I've had a chat as well with a couple of friends who've seen it, and not everybody hates this thing, I suppose. But the point is that that is a thing that is done with stories like this. Interestingly enough, that if you consider that the Lord of the Rings is a novel, um, and that its author's intent is to create a myth, then part of that process is for other people eventually to take that work and do something else with it, whether you like it or not. And it got me thinking about in terms of how people talk about respecting lore and so on. And I just thought about this King Arthur, and we have it's still, how many King Arthur movies are there? How many of them bear any resemblance whatsoever to the King Arthur story? And the answer is very few, or hardly any at all. To the point of some of them being quite ridiculous and absurd. And you've had 1600 years of this done with the King Arthur myth, and I suppose it's to me it's part of the myth making process, and it's what reinforces and spreads a myth. And so my own point of view was I got just thinking about it in terms of the Arthurian stories and Tolkien's Middle Earth, is that ultimately if Tolkien did want his stories, his novels to become a kind of mythology for England, then by that's how it's done. And in that sense, that by other people taking his work and doing this, then Tolkien has now actually got what he wanted. There's the Lord of the Rings is in a sense becoming mythical, I think. So it's just my own opinion, and I've just been putting a bit of thought into it. There's particularly a lot of people commenting about how you respect lore, etc. And ultimately, Tolkien's work it's either canon or it's not. It's either his work or it's not, I suppose. And you see this done with other characters, but I'd actually thought about it particularly in relation to myths and legends. And this is the process of how an event becomes a story and becomes a myth, is that it spreads. People add their own flavor, their own local character to these stories. And I just thought it was an interesting way of looking at it. That as much as some people might not see it respectful to Tolkien's work, in a sense, it's making his work into a myth, and in that sense, he's getting what he wanted. And it's, I don't know, part of me thinks it's damned if you do and damned if you don't, if you know what I mean. But I don't know what you think about my point of view on that. If anybody's got a wee comment on it. It's one of the things I've been thinking about, excuse me, for quite some time. Let me get some fluids here and I'll catch up with your comments. Joseph, I think you've kind of nailed my feelings about it, really. Denis making up stuff again. Sorry, Denis making up stuff again sucks. That said, I'm super excited. I agree. Any chance, I love any chance to see June on a TV screen or that kind of thing. Any kind of medium. I've been some of the audiobooks picked up recently as well. I haven't had time to listen to them, just a little bit. Vela saying, back to work in a minute. I noted an author I love a while ago with no expectations, just if it was of interest to you, and I think you might enjoy one of his series. I'll try to describe it. The fundamental story is based on the idea that in the 1800s, someone discovered the secret to life. This led to the Industrial Revolution instead of mechanical being organic, and that is the basis of it. It's entirely focused on characters and storytelling inside that world, and it combines science and technology with life, which makes a fascinating look at social and political power dynamics and how tech impacts society and the like. Sounds interesting. I still have some correspondence from last year, Vela, that I haven't caught up with yet, and it's my own fault, I suppose, in falling behind with it. And I always promise everybody I will get caught up with it. I've been whittling my way through it slowly. Who's the author, though, Vela? Because you noted an author. It sounds like an interesting concept. What you're saying kind of reminds me on the description that you've given has got me thinking on Zootopia, isn't it? By Erasmus Darwin, that kind of thing, which is an interesting kind of piece of proto science fiction, you know. Um, hmm. So, I suppose that's in terms of the reading and so on. And there are a fair amount of old Elric books, etc. Um, that's kind of what's been on my list at the minute, and I don't think there's. What am I about to get into? Yeah, piling through the Shishinru, and hopefully then a bit of King Arthur for me, and then of course finishing the June book club. Once that's done, hopefully we'll get a few wee videos made, and then we're going to try and sort of set out our stall for the next year. We were hoping to try and go to Comic Con this year up in Belfast. Pardon me, as book a wee table, go up and kind of push the station a wee bit to start kind of launch it again. But unfortunately, the tables were sold out, so I might try and pick one up for next year, as we get things going, you know. Vela says the author is J.C. McCrae. This serial is named Twig. I'll scribble that down. Twig. It's a great word, Twig. I love it. Free online, a true series, chapter one at a time till we finished. Yes, I think I remember this. We talked about a bit about a few online authors. I published a wee poem on the station, by the way, for my wife. I hope people don't mind, but called Wendy, I suppose, a wee love poem I wrote for her, just as a wee thing coming up towards our anniversary. So it's not always science fiction, folks. Occasionally, I will indulge myself on this station, but I don't. But I just wanted to let you know, don't be worrying. I don't intend to cover the thing in love poetry and stuff like that, you know. So I don't know. I haven't heard too much from you guys about what you're reading and what you're looking at the minute. The other stuff that are, I can tell you that my a couple of things gave me absolute joy this year. And the first one, I have to say, nice to see Northern Ireland in it. Was the Dungeons and Dragons film, Honor Amongst Thieves. I absolutely loved it. Found it really, really enjoyed it. My wife's not a D&D player or fan or anything like that. She loved it as well. I thought, what a great family film, and great bit of entertainment. And but yeah, by far, you know, the best Dungeons and Dragons film I've certainly seen. But it was just a great film. I really enjoyed it. A great piece of entertainment. I don't know if any of your D&D fans out there, or AD&D fans, role players, etc., what you thought of it. But I absolutely loved it. I was delighted, and it was some really nice little nods in it and stuff, I think, for the people who play the game and even people who watch the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. But yeah, I absolutely, total delight, I think, you know. The other things that I've kind of picked up on this year, I suppose, I watched the Sandman series, and I'm a big fan of the Sandman graphic novels, and I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I don't know how far back we're going, but House of the Dragon was also pretty good. The Witcher Blood Origin, I thought was a bit rubbish, to be honest with you. But a couple of shows that I managed to catch to start with that I hadn't seen, I suppose. One was The Orville, bit of science fiction comedy from, is it Seth MacFarlane? Is that correct? And I thought that was really good. Really enjoyed that. I think it might have been cancelled. And then the other thing that I've been watching, I managed to catch, is I've seen the first 9 episodes. So the first series is 10 episodes. Is Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, and I quite enjoyed that. I don't know again what the direction that some of the Star Trek TV series have been heading in, but I thought it was very much a return to Star Trek. Old-fashioned Star Trek, a family show, if that makes sense. And I thought it worked very well, and I thought it was quite enjoyable. So I haven't seen the last episode of the first series, and I haven't seen it. I think it's up and running again with some new episodes. But again, I don't know if anybody's seen it. But I've enjoyed that very much. And it's nice to see a bit of old-fashioned Star Trek on, you know. So that's my wee kind of list of, I suppose, some of the stuff that I've seen and read, etc., over the last year. I'm not too sure what I've been particularly looking forward to apart from the new June movie. I have to have a wee. I have to start getting my head back into the whole science fiction thing. There were a few other wee things I'd scribbled. This is the notes that I'd scribbled down for the last live broadcast that I was going to do, and I don't think I got to do it. And I kind of on my little list here was Lord of the Rings of Power, The House of Dragon, Rick and Morty, the most recent series, which I wasn't particularly impressed by. And I made a wee note here that Jean-Luc Godard passed away at 91 from assisted suicide. He's French Swiss, so he's the director of Alphaville, which I think is quite an important wee science fiction film from the French New Wave, and it's an odd one. And I think I don't know if anybody's seen Alphaville. I think it's influential on things like Blade Runner and stuff like that. And I think also that we lost Martin Barker as well, who passed away. Let me see. Martin Barker would be. Yeah, here we are. I'm not sure. I'm not too sure what he was working on, but sort of in terms of documenting comics in Britain and stuff like this. This is one of the books I have. Is A Haunted Fears, the strange history of the British horror comics campaign. So it's well known in these kind of books in circles. Let me see if I've got to be. And his stuff's pretty good if you ever get a chance to read it. Have a wee look at it on Wikipedia, etc. In terms of the books, etc. I think he was to be working on. This was again. This was me looking at this about a year ago. Let me just very quickly have a look. Martin Barker. Yeah, it's 8th of September 22. Sadly, British scholar. So we're talking sort of science fiction scholar. And he was a good age, 76. Known for being one of the pioneers behind the concept of cultural racism, which he turned to new racism. So it's at the University of Liverpool, etc. That's where I went to study science fiction. Let's just see. So, what have we got there? The Haunted Fears, the new racism, conservativism, ideology of the tribe, video nasties, comics, ideology, power, and the critics. And one of the books that I used when I was doing my master's degree is, and I highly recommend it if anybody's into the history of British comics, is Martin Barker's Action, the Story of a Violent Comic. And particularly if you're, there's plenty of other stuff there, stuff on Lord of the Rings and et cetera, et cetera. So if just in terms of sci-fi, fantasy, academia, a bit of a great loss, I think. There we go. But Action, for those who don't know, is kind of the comic that 2000 AD ultimately became. There's a bit of a campaign against it in Britain. I think mainly to do with a football hooliganism story that was quite violent. And Action kind of merged into. They were basically shut down by Thatcher's government, I think, and it got relaunched as 2000 AD. For example, Judge Dredd was a tough kind of Dirty Harry style cop called Dredger, and they just set all their stories in the future, and the football stories became the kind of future sports that you get in 2000 AD, things like Mean Arena and stuff like that, and the Harlem Heroes. Excuse me. But there we go. So it was just a few, what was going on in the world, etc. I suppose the other things that have been happening is I turned 50, which was a weird one. And of course, we hit our anniversary with our channel has been up on YouTube for 3 years. Just recently on the 3rd of June, we had hoped to sort of be back up and running by then, but it wasn't happening. And we'd had catastrophic computer failure as well. Let's have a wee look at your comments, folks. And if anybody's got any questions, fire away. Oh, right, I've got to back up a wee bit. Hang on, I've obviously been nattering a wee bit. As I said, I've been told I've had a couple of injections of steroids into my hand today, and I was told that I'd be hyper tonight. So the wife told me to pop on and do a broadcast. So I hope I'm not going too fast or being a bit too much, folks. Let me see if I can just back up to where we were. There we were. Vela was saying about author J.C. McCrae. I wonder, do many of you read internet fiction, I suppose, and published online. I've never really read anything like that, except possibly Agrippa. I'm just thinking. So the serial is named Twig. It's free online. A true serial. He released chapters one at a time until he finished. I've been thinking about maybe doing something like that myself, Vela. You never know. Yes, there's some fantastic online-only writers from the last 10 or 20 years. They make a living using patrons for their content. I'm currently reading Pale by J.C. McCrae with some friends. We get together every couple of weeks to talk about the section we finish, then move on to the next. Fantastic, excellent. Vale says, I love the D&D movie, and my wife loved it too, and she does not like that sort of thing in the slightest. Joseph said he loved the D&D movie. Yeah, it's getting a lot of love, and I enjoyed it. It's great to just go and see a film that you can just go, and I didn't have too many high expectations about it, but it exceeded them all. I thought the acting was great. I thought the script was brilliant. I thought it was very funny. And I thought it was very respectful, and I thought it was just a great standalone fantasy film. I'm absolutely I was delighted by it. I just thought it was a delight. I plan to watch it a good few more times and have a good nosy at it. And as I said, I love the little nod to the cartoon characters from the 80s cartoon series. Star Trek New Worlds is, in my opinion, great, says Joseph Smith. So the biggest thing that I've always thought was that Star Trek's a family show, Joseph. As much as it can get a wee bit dark sometimes, but it should be a family show. It's everybody. I don't know why everybody has to make everything so dark these days. But to me, it evoked the original Star Trek. I think that, and not just because it's set in that era. It does seem to be a family show. And I like that kind of thing. Peel by J.C. McCrae says, Vela, it's like someone took all of the grim fairy tales, Irish mythology, world religions, and brewed a fantastic new set of stories from their pages. I'm also enjoying Star Trek New Worlds. Love the respect it shows to canon while telling new stories. And there's Colleges and Cannibals, big in Japan. Hello, Colleges and Cannibals. How you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. Darn it, I really have to get back to work. Take care. No problem, Vela. Thank you very much, as always. Joseph saying, woohoo, 50 is nifty. I haven't heard that one, but thank you, Joseph. You keep drawing me back in. The D&D movie, I think, is one of its biggest strengths was use of exposition. It describes things perfectly and concisely while hiding it was exposition. I respected that. Yes, I particularly enjoyed the graveyard scene. I thought this very well done. Very well done indeed. Nice to see you. Hope you're well. Yes, I'm doing all right. Colleges and Cannibals. I said up at the hospital today to get I've had some steroids popped into the hand with the hope of helping it out a wee bit. But yeah, no, we've been getting there. We've had a rough year, and it's I suppose just dealing with grief. And what the main reason why I came off the air, folks, was just we had so much to deal with, but there's no point in inflicting that kind of nonsense on other people. It's not fair. And it's so I just very happy to just be back, and but with my usual sort of perky self, so thank you very much. I hope you are all well yourselves and keeping groovy. Nice to see who you are. The humor was great. It was. It's yeah. I thought it was a great representation, not just of a fantasy, but of the game itself. And I think if I was young and I was watching that and I didn't know much, I think I'd be wanting to go out and buy a Dungeons and Dragons game. I do not know Barker's work. How does he compare to Bordeaux? I have no idea. Colleges, because I don't know who that is. Let me see. I don't have a copy of Action anymore, but it was a book that I used a lot. I did one of my master's thesis on 2000 AD. Pierre Bourdieu, French sociologist. I have not read a thing by that man. Let's have a look. No, I've read nothing. I'm sorry. So I wouldn't be able to compare at all. Just I think in terms of Barker's work on the British comic scene. He's a chronicler of it. It's sort of a bit of a rough time, but they're well written. They're well researched. And I kind of like this kind. Let me see if I can show you a wee bit. Comics in your children. We get these periodical things where people freak out about, comic books and stuff. Particularly, I mean, it was a big thing in America about it, wasn't it? The moral majority or something, wasn't it? I think there was a whole bunch of housewives, as usual, protesting about Lucifer or something like that. For example, I mean, what happened with Action Comics? I mean, it's a history book, I think. And what I think is great about these kind of books. What's this one? This is Haunted Fears. Strange history of British horror comics, of the British horror comics campaign. So it's kind of that he's chronicling these kind of things. They're for what the content is, and I suppose they're not for the casual reader who's into comic books. I think they're very, very accessible. They're well observed, I think, and you get all this kind of stuff. If you can see that, let me see if I can. Oh, here, I keep doing that. There we go. Children's minds. It's the nonsense that people come up with. I'm well versed in British comics. Not so much American comics. Not a fan of American comics in particular. Have always found them primary colours and twee, I suppose, and I know they took a kind of darker shift in the 80s, when I always think that's pretty much down to the sort of the British brain drain, that the 2000 AD people periodically got pinched. His output sounds eclectic. Yeah, I think so. That he has a wee Wikipedia page there, but in terms of when I mean, goodness, I was using his books a long time ago, so I always forget that. In terms of I was reading that stuff around where would I have been? About 1998, I think. So I'm certain that he's done an awful lot in that time. but particularly my interest was in and around sort of that period with Action Comic that led into the what ultimately became 2000 AD. I have a wee documentary on 2000 AD somewhere. I must have a wee chat about it sometime. Let me just check. I don't know. I do not know Barker's work. How does he? Oh yeah, we did that. Concept of cultural racism make me think of Bordeaux on cultural capital. Barker's output sounds eclectic. Yeah, it's if particularly British. Well, for me, as I said, not too sure about later on, but the kind of campaigns against British comics. In that period, I suppose it's that Thatcher's taking away kiddies' milks and stuff. But 2000 AD turns up in 1977, if you like. So, I suppose there's things like Star-Lord and stuff around the time, Battle, Action. Goodness, then Warlord and Commando. I suppose the kind of war comics were okay. But I think some of these comics were coming at stories that are in a very much a social way. I mean, you'll know who all these writers are these days because they're all the 2000 AD bigwigs. The big writers, the big artists, and all. And as I said, it was kind of ended up that because of what was done to Action, if what had been done to Action Comic hadn't happened, we would never have 2000 AD. It just wouldn't exist. And so it's kind of the destruction of 2000 AD is the phoenix, if you like, of Action Comics. As much as the government, the Sun newspaper, as far as I recall, it's been a long time since I looked at this. Would you believe I just found this thesis the other day? So I'll maybe have a wee look at it and see if there's anything worth. I don't think it's very good, but if there's any little bits of insight that I had found at the time, Brian Boland's artwork is great. I love Brian Boland. There we go. It's my pencil case from a long time ago. I haven't seen much just since I was a kid. That's Brian Boland there. There we go. Oh, I was wondering if any had seen the wee pictures that I put up just on the community page there, by the way. A few holiday snaps. So myself, the wife, and my son were off to Amsterdam, is where we were. And so those pictures we put up were in the Mocha Museum of Modern Art. And the metallic robot is Hajime Sarayama's sculpture. And I've never seen a sculpture by him, didn't even know he did sculptures. So I took a quick couple of snaps of that. The little painting with the wave kind of thing, in the blue and the colours of Ukraine is a painting by Eddie Vedder that's in the museum. Sort of again something to do against the Ukraine war, and of course the quite wee famous cinema that you saw a picture of had a wee sci-fi fest going on, including the Planet Sauvage and Mars Attacks, etc. So that's where we were. We were in Amsterdam, folks. There we go. I think I'm okay at this end. With Connor saying nice. Well, thank you, Connor. Colleges and camels, lots of stream buffering at my end. I think we're okay here, colleges. Medicine, at the risk of mentioning McCrae too much, his very first serial, Worm, is about people with powers. It's one of my favorite things I've ever read. Got me into everything else he writes. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I suppose whenever there are books that you pick up from an author, and you'll just go, "Wow, that was so good. I want to read everything by that person now." I'm kind of at that point. I think, but if I finish Death's End by Shi Shin Lu and I'm satisfied with that book, I think I'll probably be wanting to devour pretty much everything by him. And he seems to have a reasonable output, I think. But I tend to see some of these. Yeah, so a few graphic novels and stuff as well, but reasonable amount of stuff there. Supernova Era, Ball Lightning, Wandering Earth, Ants and Dinosaurs Hold Up the Sky. I believe 4 of them are The Wandering Earth, Sea of Dreams, Yuan's Bubbles, and Village Teacher available as graphic novels. China's Answer to Arthur C. Clarke. So yeah, I just like the way this man thinks. Very, 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 very curious to see what else he's got. Exactly. You love the voice, the story mechanics, anything else you want to read, everything by them. Death's End really speeds up the story. Yeah, don't get the the pacing in the books is very good. Actually, Connor, it's something I've noted, particularly with the short chapters that we're getting in Death's End. They're enormous in the second book, and then they're kind of reason chapters. Each book's kind of got its own momentum, hasn't it? Yeah. But it's the sort of thing I am tearing into it. Whenever I'm finished here tonight, I'll go to bed and start reading it, because it's one that I just want to push on through to the end. I want to see. I know something. I know what's coming in a way that there's some sort of cosmic horror or something. It's been hard to kind of miss indications of that, but I just want to tear through it really just to get the full gist of it. But I've enjoyed it so much. It goes on by leaps indeed. Right, Connor. Absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you, I've started to think about what category of science fiction can I put this in, and what other kind of works does it remind me of, and does it sit comfortably on the shelf with? Does that make sense? And first of all, in particular, if we forget about everything else, the actual nature of the 3-body game within the 3-body problem. And it made me think that this book, it in a sense, it would sit well with things like the Glassbead game by Herman Hesse, Player of Games, even with by Ian M. Banks. And I know it's not quite the same thing, but then the scale of it, from what I can get a sense of from Death's End, got me thinking that there's something of Olaf Stapleton here, in a sense that scale, which is rare within science fiction, I think. And I mean, he mentions the other thing is that I think what's worth mentioning is he's paying a lot of nods to important science fiction. There's at least 3 or 4 sci-fi books that they're referencing within the books as kind of genius. We have The Stars My Destination program within the book, which is a real nod to Alfred Bester, Tiger, isn't it? And of course, I've noticed that there's a discussion on A Clockwork Orange within the book as well, which is called A Work of Genius. Star Maker and Last and First Men. Um, Childhood's End. Yeah, Arthur C. Clarke. Well, the comparison with Clarke is valid, I think, in terms of the writing. And I don't know what you think about this so far. I've put a bit of thought into it. Uh, there's only one real problem, and I think from reading this book, the author is determined to present to you, and this is what I really like about this, folks, because it reminds me of Frank Herbert, and I'll tell you why. Frank Herbert didn't want to write crap. He he did not want to produce some just pulpy sci-fi. He was determined to bring, what's the quote, science fiction out of the gutter, and he wanted to write a real piece of literature. And I think that the declaration by the author himself within one of these books that this is an attempt to write a real literature, to write it well is important. So my only problem with Cixin Liu's writing so far is within characterization, and that a lot of people talk the same way, and that you're does that make sense? It's a problem that Clarke has, to be honest with you. However, and here's the thing: that the characters are very well fleshed out, if you know what I mean. How would I put it? How much of that is down to translation? Rather, if you see what I mean, from Chinese to English is a thing to ask. And the work in the translation is you can tell it's top class. By the way, I'm not in any way trying to belittle it. But every writer has their thing. It's in no means spoils it. But if Cixin Liu could fix that, or if it was a thing in translation, then I think he'd be writing just, it is a masterpiece anyway. I think, and it won the 2015 Hugo Award for Best Novel, and it absolutely deserved it. But the imagination in it is incredible, and it does it, as who said it there, it goes on by leaps and days. Yeah, it hurdles you forward sometimes, stops to explain things though, and it moves you forward gently but quickly, doesn't it? And then when pardon me for saying it, but particularly the action, when the shit hits the fan, if you like, within the book, it's good. And again, in that sense, the droplets are, he's reminding me a little bit of Ian Banks as well, and all in a good way, and not in any way, not in any way, what's the word I'm looking for? Derivative. Does that make sense? He's built his stories on the shoulders of giants, I think, but you can't go, oh, he's ripped this off or this. This man's work is very original. It's bold, it's breathtaking. I think it's that good. I've only just, well, I haven't met AA for too much. She's I suppose, where am I at? AI, is that her? Is that her name? Where am I at? I'm just up to the first hour post deterrence here of The Lost World, so 212. So yeah, she's just I suppose she's almost a sort of a side character, but not much of a character, to be sure. Not been in it that much as far as I can see so far. Translation problem, perhaps. Translation's tricky, and what was I thinking on? That's the symbol there. Yes, translation is tricky, and I don't, especially with there's a lot of research in this as well. There's a lot of stuff to do with the Cultural Revolution in China. And particularly to a Western reader who might not be aware much of Chinese history, and I think it's excellent. And I think it's presented well. Though I think there's real hard work has gone into these books. But some things translate very poorly. I was actually even thinking I could of doing a poem for Cixin Liu in the style of the Chinese masters. I was going to go, what was it? I've actually already wrote it, so I might just, for a giggle, put it up there. And it was, I went to the dark forest to see Cixin Liu the other day. He was not there. I learned many things. If you know anything about Chinese poetry, I think you would like that. Um, Exceptionally good, and I think he is the new benchmark. He must be. Again, trying to find new science fiction that's not just stories set in a science fiction environment, and there's so much of it out there. So, very rightly, it deserves. If you're a fan of science fiction, I think if you like Dune, you'd like this as well. But if you're a fan of science fiction, this has got to be the new benchmark. I think I'm not aware of anything else, unless there's something else that's come out since. Excuse me. Where are we? First published in 2015. Oh no, originally published 2008. There we go, in China. So it's been around for a little while. I suppose the most recent thing prior to that, which would be the other kind of Hugo winner, would have been Anne Leckie's Ancillary series, if that's what it's called, Ancillary Mercy, Ancillary Sword, and Ancillary Justice. I thought those were very good and kind of following on in the vein of Ian M. Banks. But that's kind of the problem, I think. There's a lot of people trying to be the new Ian M. Banks, I think. And it's not the best way to go. The other book that she wrote there was Provenance, that went on. It's a British thing, I suppose, but there's a question of pronouns in it. And Lipo would approve. And unfortunately, it's a British thing. But if anybody's ever seen the goodies, if you go and look at the Icky Thump video, which is the one that a man died of laughing at, it's the pronouns are kind of Yorkshire mannerisms, if that makes sense. So to an American or a Canadian who would probably have no idea that the choice of pronouns in her book make every character sound like they're from Yorkshire. It broke down for me, and at the point where it did break down, it was where the author tried to explain what they'd done in the book, rather than let it. That works quite well in the previous books with gender and that kind of thing. And it's kind of was its novum what it made it science fiction. But I still think they're excellent books. I really think if anybody's not read them, Anne Leckie's Ancillary Mercy, Ancillary Sword, and Ancillary Justice are really, really good. Let's say translation problem. Yeah, translation can be a problem. I'm a person who reads different translations of things like the Iliad and the Odyssey, and I have my particular favorites, if you like. But a translation can change the nature of a book very easily. The Iliad and the Odyssey, for example, Pope's rather poetic translation is one that's much admired. I'm not a fan of it at all. I like E.V. Rue's translation of the Iliad. I like T.E. Shaw's translation. That's Lawrence of Arabia, to anyone who doesn't know, is a translator of the Odyssey. I like his translation of the Odyssey. But there's a much better, I suppose, more accurate ones. When it comes to the Arabian Nights, I like Richard Burton's, but I'm reading the translation that I'm working with is a new one to me. It's by, let me see, it's by Mardus and Mathers is the translation of the 1,000 Nights and One Night that I'm reading at the minute. But I've the general gist is that Richard Francis Burton's is meant to be the most accurate and probably the most adult, if you like, as well. The same character tones. It's a scary solution to the Fermi paradox. Agreed. I think it says Connor Quinton. Yeah, very good. Lipo would approve. Thank you, Connor. Brian of a God, Joe of a devil. Excellent. So I don't know. Has anybody? As much as as you know, I'm a bit of a misanthrope and I'm a bit of a hermit, but I do try to kind of keep my ear out. Has anybody out there picked up? Is there anything super new on your radar out there in terms of science fiction, whether it be TV, film, books, comics? I don't mind radio. I'm always curious to hear what you're reading and what might be new to me, because I read a lot of old stuff, and when I go into the science fiction section of the bookshop in town is not great, and it tends to be a lot of books that I've already got. The older stuff, not a lot of great selection, and then a lot of it tends to have a lot of Warhammer books, for example, and Star Wars novels and things like that. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not packing a lot of sci-fi in my bookshop. So these days, I kind of have to have a wee nosy around the internet to see what's appearing. And I think Michael Moorcock's a wee bit active, as I was saying, which is nice. And I wonder, did he have another book coming out? I must have a wee quick look. Because I had a funny feeling that he did. Pardon me. Possibly not. It looks like the Citadel of Forgotten Myths is the last one there by the looks of it. But yeah, the reason why I read Michael Moorcock, to be honest, at the time of the Alric stories, we sort of had a wee chat about it and all, and it had been so long since I read them when I was very young, and I suppose the last ones I would have read was when I was at university for the first time, so kind of 1920, around then, if you know what I mean. Read a few. One of my favorite books by him is called The Time Dweller. It's a collection of short stories. But what I actually found was wonderful about them is that they're so easy to read, and I just tore through them and enjoyed them. I enjoyed them this time as much as I remember enjoying them when I was a kid, because I was absolutely fascinated with Alric of Melniboné. And Stormbringer is we talk about Stormbringer quite a lot on this channel. It's a very, very iconic and interesting literary character, and this weapon, it's one of the things I thought about doing recently was a wee sort of we're talking about doing some top tens, that kind of thing, and I was thinking about science fiction and fantasy weaponry, things like the lazy gun and stuff like this. But I think Stormbringer would definitely have to be included in that. So there we are. That's I don't know if you've got any what's on your radar these days, folks, but I've been reading books from the Ballantine Adult Fantasy series. I have no idea what that is. Oh, let's have a look. Watched Arcturus recently. Oh, yes, right. Okay, excellent. What have we got on there? So, The Lord of the Rings, etc. Ouroboros, E.R. Edison, Tolkien, Mervyn Peake. Oh, so this Ballantine Adult Fantasy has some pretty good stuff on it, doesn't it? You've got, let's see, this is the Wikipedia entry here. We've got The Hobbit, Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, The Tolkien Reader, The Worm, Ouroboros, Mistress of Mistresses. These are E.R. Edison books. A Fish Dinner, Memison. The Road Goes Ever On by Tolkien and Donald Swann. Titus, so the Gormenghast trilogy is here. Titus Grown, Gormenghast, and Titus Alone. A Voyage to Arcturus, that's what you're reading, by David Lindsay. The Last Unicorn, Peter S. Beagle. Fine and Private Place, Smith of Wotton Major and Farmer Giles of Ham by Tolkien. Look Behind the Lord of the Rings, The Byzantine Gate. And then that's the first one, and then the series proper. That looks like a great resource. Let's see, what have we got in there that we've read? It's amazing, edited by Lynn Carter. All excellent. It looks like a great resource. Who was that? Connor. Wow, there's some great stuff there. The King of Elfland's Daughter, for example, by Lord Dunsany. Stuff that I've kind of read here. Let me just see, picking out a few things. There's The Sorcerer's Ship, Hannes Book. At the Edge of the World by Lord Dunsany. The Well at the World's End, Volume 1 and 2. William Morris, we have a copy here. And let's see, The Broken Sword by Poul Anderson. I've got some Poul Anderson to read here. Children of Lear, Lynn Carter editor. Yeah. Nightland, Three Imposters. That's a good collection of stuff, isn't it? Some pretty other over the hills and far away. Lord Dunsany, People of the Mist, H. Rider Haggard. Some excellent stuff in there. That's a really good collection of stories. Yeah. I must have a look in Valentine Adult Fantasy series. I'm going to start sort of putting together some stuff where I can actually get a look at these things. Online. Valentine. Oh, I'm going to bookmark that. There we go. Because we had catastrophic computer failure, I had a nice wee folder on my browser for all things science fiction and fantasy, and it's gone. So I'm going to have to build up a whole set of new links and stuff. Dunsany's a revelation. Yes. Hang on. Where is he? Where was he? Second. Is he here? Oh, I don't know where my copy is. But yeah, absolutely. There's a few other things that kind of year. I think. What am I thinking on? There's a Burton story called Vikram and the Vampire. It's not him. Oh, it's Horace Walpole. Castle of Ontario, that kind of thing. Is quite interesting. But Lord Dunsany is indeed very good. I'd be pretty fond, by the way, and it's not quite the same thing. We're talking about King Arthur. I'm very fond of the Idylls of the King, the poems, by Tennyson. And there is some lovely fantasy writing around at that time. Yeah. Where would he be? Oh, we're still not 100% sorting these things out. But yes, I've had a copy of that for a long time. In fact, I think I bought my copy when I went to Strawberry Hill a long time ago. Lord Dunsany, what else? Lady Gregory's Irish Mythology is a pretty good one as well, I think, But yeah, have them all now. That's worth having a look into. I'd like to build up a little set of resources, etc. here. But yeah, for people who just is that an online archive? Excuse me. Let's have a wee look. The houses are originally practiced by this character. They belong in the series of Lynn Carter says they do. They have series preface. A list of the books for the series over the years. Honorable mention to the miscellany. It's just a wee link I found off the. Yeah, let's have a wee look into that. Some good stuff though. A lot of it. Again, there are a lot of books and stuff that's been on our radar, etc. But if it's all new, that's a particularly good resource if you can get at those. But there are some great old magazines and stuff like that, aren't there? Cool, says Connor. Just took the dog for a walk, as it were. What did I miss? Not too much, Connor. Connor Quinn says not online, I think. Anyway, what were the jabs? Hydrocortisone. Yeah, I think so. I believe so. Cortisone. So one in, well, they're both in. One in here, one into the wrists, and one here. But yeah, the pad of my thumbs kind of. I'm double jointed in both my thumbs. So going to get one hand on at a time. I'm not allowed to do anything with it for 24 hours, so I'm just holding it here. And it's very, very tight at the minute. It just feels tight. It's not too sore, and the doctor that performed the injections, they have to do it with an X-ray and kind of guide it in and so on. It was very, very good. All the staff were lovely. So, oh no, if only my hand. Either says Ryan. Ryan, my hands are an absolute mess, but it's like lots of different things. But I had a bike accident when I was in my 20s, a motorcycle accident when I was younger, landed on my hands at right angles and had sort of grass and stuff, but the impact was quite bad on my hands. And then, yes, I've been using keyboards for since the late 70s. And what else? I'm a musician as well. And So there's different things that happen to different parts of the hands because of different bits of damage. So it's not just long term; it's long term wear and tear. If you know any musicians, your hands get wrecked if you're a string player. The thicker the strings, the worse the damage, basically. So bass players and cello players and viol players and double bass players all end up with pretty bad arthritis in their hands usually. But no, it's just a bit painful. So now and then, and sometimes I just lose. The last time, my last gig as a professional musician was in the Ulster Hall in Belfast, which is as big for the Belfast International Beer Festival. I used to open it. Did that 3 years in a row. My hands turned to jelly at the very last song, and they just coiled round like that. If you can see what I mean, and just the whole muscle just like a dead fly or something. Like my hand just died, and not just wouldn't move, and both hands went the same way. Um, so no, I suppose it's just wear and tear. So I'm not too bad. Thanks, Connor. So I'm not feeling particularly sick or anything, just a wee bit sore, and I'm not really allowed to do much with it for the next day. And I suppose the object of getting this done is hopefully that I can only play guitar for about 30 minutes. So it was really just to see if I could get back to playing a bit more, that I might be able to do a gig occasionally. So, but I think the answer to that is no, sadly. Um, uh, but I can still play my guitars, and I'm not too bothered about it. And I put them down as soon as my hands hurt. But sometimes if I'm trying to cut a loaf of bread, I lose power in my hand, and I can't no power at all. If you know what I mean. But I have to wrap the hands up with the doggies because they. So if you ever see me walking the dogs, my hands are all wrapped up with boxing tape. But thank you, Connor. Anyway. So no, it's just that, as I said, the doctor had said I would be hyper tonight, so we thought we'd pop on and have a wee chat. It's been a year really with the station, and as I said, things didn't kind of go the way we wanted to. But we're back up and running, and hopefully we'll have the June book club well on its way, and head towards finishing that up and doing a little bit more on June, because we were having a chat with Babs about. Particularly, we were talking about it's got me quite interested again. It's kind of got my whole let's have a go at this. We're having particularly a chat about Jessica and the myth, the legendary and mythical Atalanta. Who I'm always surprised that most people haven't heard of. Certainly a mythical character that I've always thought would be on the radar of feminists, to be honest with you, considering the ancient world. So whenever we get a wee opportunity, I think I'm going to prep a wee bit of stuff, and we'll have a good look at Jessica, and we're going to do a wee bit of a reading or two from Apollodorus, and basically give you the whole original myths, the oldest extant myths on Atalanta, and then we can have a wee little bit of a look at Graves and see how it overlaps onto Jessica. Colleges and Cannibal says, if there were science fiction quality bionics, would you have your hands lopped off and replaced? Yes, I have. The pain in my hands I've had this for, where are we, 2023. My last gig was in 2015. College is at the Ulster Hall. Prior to that, I'd been having a lot of pain and would play through it, if you know what I mean. And at one point, really, because I wasn't able to get the National Health to do anything. It's taken that long, 8 years, to really get my hands looked at. At one point, I kind of was of the mentality that if they're not going to do anything, that maybe I should just go down and chop my hand off. But you're my hands are going. They're going to degrade. So the answer is, would I accept a prosthetic if it meant that I could play guitar again properly, like for hours and stuff? Be a question of, could you feel it, I suppose. But I think if a limb has become useless and you can have a brand new limb that was good, I think it would be a consideration. But they're not completely useless. So this is an attempt to see. So I have to give this apparently either it can be a couple of days, can be about 5 days, can be about 2 weeks before I might notice some effects and stuff. But the idea is hopefully to cut down the inflammation, take the pain away a bit, and give me a wee bit of a mobility. So I don't know what to expect. So I'm quite hopeful about it, to be honest with you. And I've only had one hand done. So about 3 months, I might be able to get the other hand done, and then I can after about 3 months, I can kind of evaluate the treatment, I suppose, and see if it has done me any good. But yeah, colleges. We were saying I turned 50 there in February, and I'm getting old. Uh, reading glasses are new to me over the last 3 years, and I can't read as much as I used to, just because my eyes go. And I don't think the whole point of the laser surgery, I suppose, is one thing, but your eyesight can degrade just as rapidly with it. And I've always said I'm a bit poor, so that simply factored in the cost of glasses for my life. But in particular, looking at the stars and stuff, if my eyesight went, I would happily replace them to be able to see again. Thanks for manning the station, though. Fun place. I hope so. Thank you. We're going to try and get it up and running properly and have a bit of fun with it, I think, and we're getting started to look at some things. There's so much in science fiction, and I do like the fun stuff as well. Who did you play with? Oh, my band is Happy Shrapnel, Connor. But I've played in a few different groups, and I have actually a poster up on the wall. But I had another. I played in a duo with, because I can't sing a note. So called Sings and Strings, and that was myself and a singer called Lena Cohen, and we would just like playing, so I just played, she sings, and it was a great wee thing. And we did that for a few years, kind of after Happy Shrapnel packed up. She was the singer of Happy Shrapnel, so it was just the two of us. But the band got back together again for my dad's funeral, which was nice. And I think they were kind of looking to have a bit of a bash sometime, so maybe we'll have a wee jam with them sometime. But Sings and Strings, we would play around the north coast of Northern Ireland and all over the place. We used to be quite a regular in a hotel there in Portrush, so we used to play. We used to be in there in the hotel every month, and we just did it for fun, and we would just play something for everybody, really anything at all. But be me on the big classical guitar, which has it's got a lot more punch and versatility than an acoustic. So it's got a good tone as well. So that's what we used to do. Yeah, good fun. Really enjoyed it. Great figures. It is now. Yeah, it is now. I haven't been to a gig in a while. The last gig I went to here was Electric Six. They were stonking. I had a great time up in the Limelight in Belfast. But I used to go gigging a lot here when I was younger. But just kind of prior to that, Northern Ireland was a dead zone for gigs. Unfortunately, for a long time, bands would not come here. Can't ignore my techno. Have colleges and carnivals. If you like Electric Six, have you? I don't know if any of you caught this band, Thumpasaurus. I've been checking them out lately. I think they're pretty good. What else was I looking at? Was there something sci-fi about it? Let me have a wee quick look. I was learning a few guitar tunes off. I was figuring out a few tunes there of some new music that's hit the charts. I think I learned that how to play Too Much Music, and then what was that other one? Purple Disco Machine or something like that. I was having a wee jam at that the other day. Bad Company, I think it was called. And I'd found this Japanese band, I think called, was it New Order, World Order or something like that? Have a Nice Day. And they all walk. And have you seen the video that they do? They all walk in slow motion. Thumpasaurus, I think it is. Hang on. They're very good. Their videos are quite funny too. And they're playing about at the minute, actually. I wonder could I on tour over here in the UK, May 16th. Thumpasaurus sold out. Wow, they're doing okay. Amsterdam 15th. Oh, it looks like it's over by the looks of it. We've missed them. Thumpasaurus. Yeah. I don't know. They would remind you a bit, I think. Not quite the same thing, but of Electric Six. There they are. Thumposaurus, check them out. They're very, very good. I like them. They're funky. And I do like the funk. Clamati de Profundis is some great Lord of the Rings songs. Oh. Clamati. Do not know that at all. You always used to get your Lord of the Rings songs through Led Zeppelin, didn't you? Clamati de Profundis. Oh. I'll bookmark that and I'll have a listen. Was it Ramble On? Is it with Gollum and the evil one crept up and was it snuck away with her? If you know, oh, Leonard Nimoy, yes, don't forget that little Bilbo, the greatest little hobbit of them all. Oh goodness, weren't the 60s and 70s great? Pulposaurus will try. I'm too sexy for. I'm too sexy for my motherfucking iPhone. I think it's one of theirs. And then there's Strutting. I think it's the one's quite the. I'm Strutting. They're very good. I like them. They're a bit quirky, yeah. Again, sort of stuff that you pick up that's new. I suppose it's nice to catch some new music, you know. Well, there we go, folks. Well, yeah, I thought it would be nice to pop on, have a wee bit of an adder, and see what's going on in the science fiction world, etc. We're going to hopefully be back some next week or so. Once the next chapter is done, and we are just we'll be getting them up, don't worry, as we go. That'll be our next chapter, June, 14 and a half pages, and I'll be getting to work on that from tomorrow. So hopefully, but no guarantees, and I'm not going to do this anymore where I go, we'll be on this night. But once it's done, I'll post it up for a night. And pretty much I can go live when I say I go live this year. Are you loving those steroids? I hate steroids. I've been on them before at colleges. I have massive negative pressure in my head, and I had a guy sort of treat me up at the private clinic up in up the road a bit, I suppose. And I'm going to give you an indefinite steroid prescription. Just keep renewing. That was it. Bye bye. And after a few weeks, I just stopped. It wasn't worth it. But no, I don't like steroids at all. Not my kind of drug. At all, you know. No, but well, I had a very nice time in Amsterdam, folks, when I was there. That was quite interesting. As I said, I'm getting old and finding it hard to walk around the city, even though I use the trams. But yeah, I did a few things at the Rijksmuseum and the museum. Is it the Miko Museum of Modern Art there? Mako, I think it's called, which was pretty cool. And spent a lot of time in coffee shop Super Skunk, basically. But yeah, it was nice to have a wee holiday there, you know. But listen, folks, I'm about to sign off anyway, and we'll be back. It was just a sort of general, we're back. Without sort of, you know, the June book club is kind of, hello everyone, and we've got to get on with this. So I just thought it was nice to pop and say hello in a nice, relaxed way and have a wee bit of a chat about the sci-fi and fantasy that we've been looking at over the year, you know. So we'll hopefully see you next week, and we are going to be kind of pushing through with the book club and starting to produce more content. And I'm always open to hear any ideas or what you're reading from science fiction at the minute, what you're enjoying, whether it be old stuff or new, you know. So as always, plenty to talk about, but we've got to keep some for the next time. And in the meantime, I hope you all look after yourselves and are taking care. Nowadays, it's California weed all the way. Yeah, it's the war on drugs is lost here. You can get what you want through the post in Britain now, and it's all coming from America and Canada, pretty much. So it's fantastic, right? In fact, Amsterdam, I'm sad to say, has lost its shine, I'm afraid. But yeah, it is indeed. Good times. But yeah, especially I think hopefully they'll get on with legalizing it here soon, because particularly with pharmacies for medicinal purposes, but Britain's got so many pharmacies that are closing. Britain's in a real mess, and Northern Ireland's not much better. But yeah, the United Kingdom's an absolute mess and has been for a while now, you know. But yes, the California weed all the way. Some very, very interesting strains and stuff, and kind of having to update my, I suppose, having to update my knowledge a wee bit, But yeah, for the next time round, maybe have a wee chat about it. In the meantime, folks, we've been on for about an hour and a half, so we'll say good night, and I hope you are all keeping well and looking after yourselves. And we'll see you next week for the June Book Club, chapter 44. And I think what we might do is after we've done that, because we were having a wee natter about Jessica, we'll maybe have a wee look at that Atalanta thing following that chapter that's kind of features Jessica and Gurney. So Germany is in a steady decline too. Have a good one, Doc. I think it seems to be pretty much. I've got a theory about that we're in what you would call a new fin de siècle, especially with things like this. I think we're right at the end, but there you are. Have a good one, Doc. You too, Ryan. Everybody look after yourselves. Take care and be safe, and we'll see you real soon. Thank you very much for joining me once again, and all the best. Good night. Do 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 do.